we will have another Kim Kardashian, we will have another Kylie Jenner. So we need to start directing our anger at where these super difficult beauty standards are stemming from. We need to critique the corporations that are feeding off of our insecurities. We need to critique the media that keeps upholding these women as the standard. We need to look deeper into society and reckon with the fact that we have a part to play in this. Hi everyone, my name is Rakaya. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably know me as a sex educator. I also speak about society and culture. And on this channel, I plan to dive into so many different topics. I'm currently a sociology student, so there's just so much that I want to get into when it comes to society, culture, and just everything in between. I will also be continuing a lot of conversations on sex and relationships on this channel as well. So, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be discussing something that is a bit controversial. Now, I know I'm a bit late in relation to Khloe coming out and speaking about how she's like insecure about how she looks and stuff and the pressures of being famous and a social media star, I think. Sorry, I'm really paraphrasing here. This is not exactly what she said, but I know that it sparked a lot of discussions around the Kardashians and Jenners and their influence in society. But yes, even though I'm late, the reason why I am continuing on this conversation is because I feel like nobody has approached this conversation in the angle that I'm about to. And I don't know, I think I have a pretty decent take on this. I'm very much interested in beauty standards, and that's another reason why you need to subscribe to my channel, because I plan to release a lot of content when it comes to beauty standards and lookism and all these other kind of things. I'm sure people are thinking, what's lookism? What is lookism? Well, if you subscribe to my channel, you will definitely find out more. So I'm going to start by briefly going over where did our current beauty standards come from in relation to women's bodies and even overall appearance, but specifically the body type, because we all know now the BBL body is in trend. Having curves, having an ass, having hips, this is in vogue right now, right? This trend can be traced back to Black women. In fact, the earliest example that I saw of a BBL was Nicki Minaj, specifically around her Beam Me Up Scotty era, like Itty Bitty Piggy, like that music video was actually very influential amongst the Black community and just the underground scene before she went mainstream. I had a friend in secondary school. Yes, I'm that old. I had a friend in secondary school who was obsessed with Nicki Minaj around that time, and she would like call herself a Barbie. She wanted to look like her, she wanted to dress like her. On like Facebook, on BBM, which is basically BlackBerry Messenger, and I don't know what other social medias people are using, but those were the social medias that I was using in 2009. Oh yeah, and also on blogs as well. I saw a lot of women and gay men idolize Nicki Minaj and idolize how she looked. There were a lot of people who even recreated her look in the Itty Bitty Piggy mixtape. In the Itty Bitty Piggy music video. I even feel like for Halloween, like that look is so iconic. And the main reason that people were really infatuated with her look is obviously because she looked like a Barbie, like that was like her whole aesthetic, but it was also because of her body. She had these really crazy curves that we hadn't seen at the time, because around that time skinny was still a thing, and that sparked a lot of rumors as to whether she had gotten her body done, because there were before and after pictures that came out, and there was one picture that came out. I really do feel sorry for the woman who image was used, but we all know now that that was just Photoshop. But back in the day, most of us believed that that was really Nicki Minaj. And there was also another image of her like before Itty Bitty Piggy where she clearly looked slimmer. So a lot of people speculated that she got her body done, but she never admitted it. I don't think she's ever spoken about getting her body done till this day. And I would attribute the current beauty standards to Instagram OG models like Miracle Watts and also other women like Lira Galore. Miracle Watts was really like, she was really popular in the internet sphere of those times. I'm doing a video, well, preparing for a video about the current beauty trends and my predictions for the next decade. And so I had to do research for that. And I was looking into Miracle Watts's Instagram. Like, I scrolled all the way down to like 2013. I think it was around 2013, 2012 that she was really popular. Her pictures were everywhere. It was on Facebook, it was on Instagram, it was on BBM, because I was still using BBM around that time. It was on Tumblr. Like, her face was literally everywhere. And the reason why was clearly because of her body. A lot of people speculated that she had work done as well, but back in those days, nobody admitted to having a BBL. It was still something that was seen as taboo. Like, cosmetic surgery was taboo. So if we want to talk about who started the current beauty trends when it comes to women's bodies, it was Black women. The Kardashians, Jenners, they popularized it and brought it into the mainstream. So the key moments where Kim Kardashian's kind of like BBL shape became the standard was when she was on the cover of Paper magazine in 2014. That magazine cover literally broke the internet. It was the talk of the town for like 2 weeks. Like, I know all the blogs are talking about it. You know, there were think pieces, Twitter discourse, all of that. Her front cover caused a lot of polarizing opinions. Some people were like, yes, sexual liberation, it's just a woman doing that thing. Other people were like, no, like, this is too much. That magazine cover solidified the standard that we see today. And one thing that made me uncomfortable was that her image really reminded me of Sarah Bartman, with like her shape, like how her ass was like really exaggerated, and then that curve, it reminded me so much of Sarah Bartman, like kind of like a caricature of Sarah Bartman. Another thing that I think is important to note is that Jean-Paul Gaultier, I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name properly, he was the photographer behind this magazine cover. He is known for fetishizing Black women. He's known for fetishizing Black women. He had a book in the late 70s called Jungle Fever, where he had Grace Jones in like a cage wearing like leopard print clothing as well, and he even publicly stated that he has jungle fever. So I found it interesting how this is the man that made a cover like that Paper magazine cover. And the key moment for Kylie Jenner in terms of the rise of injectables and just how the standards for women's faces have kind of changed, I would say that she definitely played a big part in that, in terms of her influence and people wanting to look like her. Because I remember when her lips started to look different and there was so much buzz around her glow up. I found it so crazy how just having bigger lips could completely just change your face. And she denied the surgery for, well, not surgery, but she denied having filler for a long time. When people would ask her, she just said that how she would just line her lips, and she was able to sell lip kits based on that, which was very interesting because the young girls that were looking up to her clearly believed that if they just lined their lips, if they just follow her lip routine when it comes to makeup, that they too can have those kind of lips. It was very deceitful. 110% agree with that, because I know a lot of people mention that when they talk about the influence of this family. But yes, I would say those were the two key moments that basically solidified the beauty standards that we have today, that made injectables, that made cosmetic surgery a lot more acceptable within our society, and created our current beauty standard of fake, superficial, Instagrammable. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but that's the current beauty trends of today. And what I agree with when it comes to people's complaints about the Kardashian-Jenners is, like I said before, the deceit, the avoiding telling the whole truth when it comes to plastic surgery, and then selling people things like diet teas and waist trainers, and kind of making people believe that they could look exactly like how they look if they just bought these products. Because doing that definitely created even more insecurities in young girls, because they would buy these things and then they would take them, and in the end they wouldn't look like the women that are selling them these products. And that can cause you to feel even more worse about yourself. And it really does affect the psyche of young girls and young women. But I find it weird that everyone keeps pointing the finger at this family when literally these tummy teas, diet gummy bears, whatever it was that these women were selling, all the influencers at that time were literally selling the same thing. Nobody calls them out for it. It just seems to be everyone pointing their fingers at this family. And I get that it's because this family is the most visible, so therefore the most influential. But it's leading to my point about misplaced anger. But I'm going to get to that in a sec. So I'm just quickly jumping in to say that how, okay, it wasn't solely the Kardashians that were getting the fingers pointed at them. It was just influencer culture in general, and this whole influencer marketing campaign that Flat Tummy Tea was pushing at this time on social media. But we cannot deny that the people who were mainly getting the blame were the Kardashians. And one of the most notable people who was calling out this toxic diet culture at the time was Jamila Jamil. And her main targets and who she directed most of her anger towards was always the Kardashians. So that was my whole point. Another thing as well is that I can't even be that angry at them because we live in a patriarchal society that places so much emphasis on women's beauty and looks. Beauty is currency in our society. Go and look up the erotic capital theory by Catherine Hakim. It is very, very real. Beauty helps you to acquire vast amounts of capital in our society as a woman, which is why so many women are willing to go through extreme measures to obtain beauty. It does feel a bit icky for me in terms of this family's method of capitalizing off of their beauty, but at the same time, I don't think I can be that angry at them because they are just the products of something so much more bigger. And I find that that bigger thing hardly ever gets addressed in these conversations. I've seen discussions on Twitter, on Instagram, of people saying things like, the Kardashians made me insecure. The Kardashians made me feel shit about myself. The Kardashians make girls want to go and get surgery. And I just think to myself, the Kardashians didn't make you do anything. I know that this is better said than done, but you can disengage from their content. Honestly, don't get me wrong. I understand what people mean. If you're scrolling through Instagram for ages and you're seeing all of these perfect looking people with not a pore in sight, with perfect proportions, and they just look so put together, it can cause you to compare yourself. That's human nature. We can't help ourselves but to compare. That can definitely plant some insecurities within you, but you still can't blame those people for making you insecure. It just doesn't work like that. And this is my issue and what I was speaking about before. It's misplaced anger. Society really has a role to play in perpetuating our current beauty standards, but nobody wants to talk about that. So does the media. An example of that is the fact that Paper Magazine sought to break the internet through Kim Kardashian's bum. So yes, the media definitely has a part to play in that. So does the fashion industry. The fashion industry is so influential when it comes to beauty standards. For example, if you look at the late 90s to the early 2000s, low-rise jeans were in fashion. And the thing about low-rise jeans is that you have got to have a specific body type to be able to wear low-rise jeans. You've got to have, your stomach has got to be on flat. Your ass can't be too big. Everything has to be thin. You can't be too curvy. You can't be too voluptuous. You can't even have just a little bit of a pudge. The beauty standards in the late 90s to early 2000s were so harsh. But it's the same thing with like in the 1920s. If you wanted to participate in flapper fashion and culture, you had to have the look, and the look back then was obviously more straighter physiques. So if you had curves, you had to go and get a girdle and you had to go and hide those curves. If you had a big chest, you had to flatten your chest because the fashion just did not suit that body type. Fashion definitely plays a huge part when it comes to beauty standards, but also capitalism plays a role in this because beauty companies, fashion companies will plant seeds of doubt, of insecurities into you just so that you can buy their products. One thing that I also want to make clear is that capitalism didn't start beauty trends. Beauty standards have been around way before capitalism was around. What I would say is that, yes, capitalism, the media, they have really amplified the standards of today and have made them even more unattainable. But the way that society has a part to play in this, and the reason why I find the complaints just a little bit too disingenuous, is that why do they have so many followers? Why are these women still able to profit off of their looks? Why do they still have an audience? And the thing is, it's women of all races that support them. And I think to myself, like, if people really hate the beauty standards and they want them to change, then why do these women still have an audience? Why do they still have so much support? People say that, oh, we want natural looking people. We want average looking people who look relatable, who look normal. But those people are never revered as the standard. And then some people can say, well, currently in society, there are a lot of people who are challenging the beauty standards. Yes, they are. In every single era, especially an era like this, I wouldn't be surprised if in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was also a pushback. There's always going to be some form of a pushback because the majority cannot fit into these really rigid beauty standards. And so because of that, because they don't fit, they always tend to push back. I wouldn't be surprised if in the 60s, when it was mod fashion and Twiggy was seen as like the standard when it came to women's bodies, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a huge pushback back then as well. Yes, you could say that, well, diversity, this and that, but it really is just for show. A lot of these corporations who are championing diversity, it really is just to get your coins. They're not really diverse though. Like, you see all of these brands starting to use fat women as their models and stuff like that, but fat women are still not the standard. And that's my whole point. Like, the majority of women are still looking to the Kardashian-Jenners and other women like that as the standard. There's always going to be some form of a pushback, but it doesn't necessarily change anything. It's just a reaction to what the current trend is. And this leads me on to my next point. Let's face it, nobody wants to be mediocre. Nobody wants to be an average Joe. And yes, that may be a bit uncomfortable to hear, but this is coming from somebody who has body dysmorphia, who doesn't like the way that she looks, who has a lot of insecurities, low self-esteem, but I'm also realistic and I also don't feel entitled to the world. Average looks are not rewarded in our society. This is why we strive to transcend mediocrity and essentially basicness. This is why we try to chase these really rigid and excluding standards, because throughout history, people that are above average have always been bolstered up. And it's not just in looks, it's in various areas. Like, for example, athletes. Athletes are kind of seen as like superhuman. They're like heroes. Footballers, basketball players, they are seen as people who are able to push their physical bodies past their limits, the limits that most of us have. For example, the Olympics. The Olympics is a place where like the people who are just super gifted when it comes to physical strength and physical capabilities, those are the people who come together to show off their strength and be rewarded for it. When you look at somebody like Usain Bolt, who is like the fastest man in the world, and the praise and the adoration that he gets for it, because like I said, athletes are seen as superhumans. They are seen as physically just above everyone else. It's the same thing with musicians. You look at somebody like Michael Jackson, who is praised as the greatest entertainer of all time. You look at somebody like Beyonce. These are people who could sing better than everyone else, who could dance better than everyone else, who could perform better than everyone else. Actors, right? Great philosophers, intellectuals, writers. You have to think about it. Why are these people bolstered up within our society? Because we view them as being above average. Society cannot function without hierarchy. This is my own opinion. If you look at religions, for example. How long have people believed in God? Even before the concept of the God, as in the Christian God or the Muslim God. Even when you look at ancient religions, there were still deities, goddesses, people who were just revered above us. We've always had a hierarchy within society. It's like everyone is striving to become the perfect human, and I'm going to do a video on what I mean by the perfect human in relation to physicality and humanness. What I mean by the perfect human is somebody who is attractive, who's beautiful, who is fit, healthy, who doesn't get sick, who is able-bodied, who is young. Everyone is somewhat striving for those things to become the perfect definition of what it means to be a human. It's like an endless quest, which is why when it comes to beauty standards, I don't think things will ever be equal. Okay, so say for example, we all looked average. We all looked like average Joes. We will find a way to differentiate ourselves. We'll start looking at hands. Oh, who has the most longest, most beautiful fingers? Or who has the prettiest fingernails? Or who has the longest nose? I mean, we already do shit like that. Or who has the most clearest, like invisible pores kind of skin? We'll find ways to differentiate ourselves, to divide ourselves, to create a hierarchy amongst ourselves, even if we all looked average. When have we ever been an equal society? And I mean equal across the board. I don't just mean like in terms of like the economy or in terms of like race or anything like that. I mean equal across the board. There is no differentiation. There is no marker. There is no nothing. When has that ever been in our society? If anyone knows, please let me know. Which is why I'm not necessarily against beauty standards. My stance on beauty standards is more of they are currently extremely harsh and unattainable, and it would be nice if they were much more easier to attain, so at least more people can fit into the standard. Another thing that I do agree with when it comes to the complaints of the Kardashian-Jenners is the cultural appropriation. Well, not necessarily cultural appropriation, but more so the appropriation of the black female aesthetic, the black female body, and the fact that they've of course capitalized off of that. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, that Paper magazine cover, it was frustrating to see because it did remind me of Sarah Bartman and how she was put in a circus and was defiled and was assaulted and was treated like an animal because of having a similar shape. It really annoys me. It does. It annoys me that white women are getting fillers to have fuller lips, right? When historically black people have been ridiculed for having full lips, but now that white women adopt these features, all of a sudden they're attractive, they're acceptable, they're praised. It is frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. And you know what's worse? What's worse is that I'm seeing black women now try to look like the women that are trying to look like them. So for example, there's one cosmetic, not a doctor, but you know, like they're able to administer fillers and stuff like that, and she's black and her clientele are all black, and I went on her page and they all have full lips. All of her clientele have full lips, but they still go and get fillers. I don't know, I just find it strange how like black women are literally getting filler to look like the white women that are trying to look like them. Like I can go to the road right beside my house, and I live in a predominantly black neighborhood. I can go down the road and I can get filler at the nail shop, because now anyone can get certificates to administer filler. The fact that it's in a predominantly black neighborhood, yeah, you can guess the people that are going there to get filler. It is really, really frustrating. It's really frustrating to see white women capitalize off of the features that black women were ridiculed for. Not even just when it comes to our bodies or our facial features, when it comes to our aesthetic, like when long nails are on a black woman, when colorful hair is on a black woman, black hyper femininity gets demonized and dogpiled. But if white women do it, great, wow, high fashion. I get the frustration. I genuinely do. And I do believe that it is worth discussion. But I would also like us to direct our anger to the right places, because let me tell you something, guys. It's just going to end up being a continuous cycle. It's going to end up being a continuous cycle when this decade progresses, because I do believe that the beauty standards will start to change probably around 2023, 2024. And we're going to get a new standard, which is why you need to subscribe to my channel, because I will have a video out by the beginning of next month on my predictions for what will come next. So please do that for me. So when that happens, you will see the same cycle. It will be the same thing, the same rigid, difficult to attain beauty standards. It will just metamorph into something else. And people are still going to be blaming the people that are placed on a pedestal within our society as like the standard, as like the image of the standard. We will have another Kim Kardashian. We will have another Kylie Jenner. So we need to start directing our anger at where these super difficult beauty standards are stemming from. We need to critique the corporations that are feeding off of our insecurities. We need to critique the media that keeps upholding these women as the standard. We need to look deeper into society and reckon with the fact that we have a part to play in this. We love to strive for things greater than ourselves, and to be honest, I don't think that will ever change. Okay, that's all, beautiful people. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely share your thoughts. As you can see, I'm somebody who is typically like in the gray area. Like I never just like fully agree with one side or agree with the other side. I'm always like in the middle. I always want to hear what they're saying, I'm like, okay, yeah, some of the things you're saying is true, but some of the things you're saying is not true. And some of the things you're saying is true, but some of the things you're saying I cannot like mess with. I feel like by doing that, it helps me to think critically about things. Hopefully this video provided a balanced opinion. Let me know, what is your opinion on this discussion in relation to beauty standards? Tell me in the comments below. And also follow me on Instagram. I'm active on Instagram, hella active. And like I said before, subscribe, because I'm going to be releasing a lot of content. As I disseminate slowly more content, you're going to start to understand a lot of my viewpoints, my opinions, and my worldview on a lot of things. And I think that you will find it rather interesting. So yeah, give me a chance and subscribe. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.